I've got another number that, you know, it might tickle your fancy because so many people are so frustrated with what's happening. In fact, the words spoiled children come to mind. Acting like spoiled children in the budget debate. Republicans, 69%. Democrats, 58%. The president, 47%. And whenever you hear about spoiled children, you don't want to be in any of those percents. And yet my next two guests are going to have to deal with what Americans are saying. Representative Dana Rohrabacher, the Republican from California, standing beside Representative Marsha Blackburn, Republican from Tennessee, who's also a member of the House Budget Committee. Thank you both for being on the program today. This cannot be an easy day for you, especially when you just heard what John King was laying out in the polls, and you just heard what I laid out with regard to the spoiled children factor. How are you going to weather this? And I'll begin with you, Congressman Blackburn.
Yes, you know, I think that what we look at is that the American people have repeatedly said they want things to be under control and run by an orderly process in Washington, D.C. We completely agree with that. And that is why we have repeatedly sent options and possibilities to the Senate. And I tell you, I think that the House is as disappointed as the American people that the Senate decided they were going to take off and have a weekend to go to ball games and play golf and things of that nature. We've been here working. We wish they were back in town now and we were addressing this. We agree with the American people. Don't shut the government down. We don't want to. What we want to do is keep it open and keep working to fix some of these programs that have very obvious, substantiated problems and glitches like Obamacare.
It just sounds so simple when you say it like that, and it reminds me of my time in the Middle East, where both Palestinians and Israelis say, we just want peace. But you both want your way, and neither one of you seems to want to blink in this ridiculous staring contest where we're the ones who need the Visine. So, Congressman Rohrabacher, why the continuing resolution? And for those in our audience who hate the technical speak, why connect the funding of the government, the entire U.S. economy? Why bring it to this brink? Why not do it at all the other times all of the other 100+ Congresses have been able to fund the government?
Well, have you addressed that to the Senate? I mean, we've already offered a compromise. You're telling your listeners that we Republicans are holding this up and the government's going to shut down. We have actually reached out to the Democrats with a compromise position.
Congressman, that's not fair. Don't you dare put this back on me. You know full well, you know full well you attached Obamacare and defunding it.
Am I a guest on the news show, or am I here to listen to the tirade?
You cannot make something up. Am I a guest on your
news show, or are you here to give us a tirade?
You can't make up facts, sir.
Let me finish
you passed a bill back to the Senate saying defund Obamacare.
Excuse me, do your listeners understand this is the same thing we're putting up with the Senate? We offer a compromise. They won't even talk to us about it. You won't even talk to us about it. Whose bidding are you doing? We have offered the compromise. We don't like Obamacare. They like it. We have reached out halfway to them, put on the table a proposal, passed a resolution to keep the government going. They opposed the resolution to keep the government going and now say there's no negotiations, we get it all, or you get nothing. So, and you're blaming us for the shutdown.
So if you want to know whose bidding I'm doing, check my Twitter account after this interview where I invited 2 Republicans on and not a Democrat. So let's just clear the air right there.
You are cutting me off.
You said that they were doing this, and I think it's important. You can in a moment, Congressman. It's very important for people to understand what's at stake here. There's a continuing resolution, which is the funding bill just for the next 2 months to keep the government going, and the Republicans chose, under a lot of pressure, Ted Cruz, for one, in the Senate, creating a lot of that pressure, to attach defunding Obamacare, which is the law of the land. Why would you attach it when you knew that this was going to create the problem? Go ahead, Marsha Blackburn.
Then we came to a compromise.
Ashleigh, one of the things that you need to realize, and I would hope that your listeners and watchers all realize, number one, the House passes a budget every year. We've had a problem with the Senate not passing a budget. That is why we continue to work on a continuing resolution. This year, they did pass a budget, but then they said, okay, House, we're not going to negotiate with you unless you agree to a tax increase. We weren't going to do that. We want to do tax reform. So Thereby, we get into this process of a continuing resolution. Now, the biggest part of growth in the budget is health care cost. The American people, by overwhelming numbers, do not like what is happening with Obamacare. So the first continuing resolution we sent had a bill that is carried by Tom Graves in the House, and that was a defunding bill. The Senate rejected that. So we went back into session. Our compromise position that we sent back to them carried a bill that, by the way, the amendment passed with bipartisan support, and that is the amendment to simply delay Obamacare for a year. The president has already given 1,200 waivers. He's had 19 delays, and they've missed 47 regulatory deadlines on this program. It's not ready.
Let me ask you both.
So we have sent that to the Senate, and what we're hearing back is, well, they didn't stay here Saturday. They didn't show up Sunday to take action on it.
Okay.
And they're going to come back today. So we've offered them a compromise.
I hear you. We're 12 hours and 38 minutes on our countdown clock, which, by the way, is ticking away right underneath Congressman Rohrabacher's tie. 12 minutes and 38 minutes until a lot of people aren't going to get paid and a lot of things are going to shut down, and it could cost this country $2 billion in just muckety logistics.
Right.
So I want to ask you both are, just a moment, you are both paid $174,000 a year. That's your salary. Would you be prepared to add some kind of a rider or an amendment onto a continuing resolution that would take you out of the essential services category and stop payment on your paychecks in order to get a continuing resolution through? Would you both, yes or no? Yes or no? Would you both be prepared to stop your paychecks?
We're waiting to see what they send back, and I hope that as you are running the countdown clock, that you're running the debt clock. I've got two grandsons. Their share of the national debt is now over $53,000
I'm sorry.
each.
I asked a really specific question. I wanted a yes or no question. There are a lot of government workers that are going to stop receiving their paychecks, and there are a lot of military service members who are serving overseas who might stop being paid, and there are veterans whose benefits to be affected. Would you be prepared to take a cut and lose your paycheck as well?
Let me answer your question.
It's a yes or no question.
Members of the Congress should not be treated any differently than any other federal employee.
Is that a yes?
For that to happen, whatever happens to the federal employee should happen to us. When it comes to what we get in benefits, whether it's retirement or health care, whatever happens to the average federal employee should happen to us. That rule should not be changed. The bottom line is we have reached out now to the Senate. When you have that numbers underneath my tie, that should be under Harry Reid's picture, not mine. I've already done my job. And
2 o'clock is coming soon.
Republicans have wanted to compromise. They've said hit the road.
We're working. We're in session. They're not.
You are not the only two on the hot